You are now live. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
hello, UK Crime
folks,
Club. I'm live, Mark Richards. How many times have we done this? And you
I
still,
don't know.
every time, give us a good introduction while I
Every,
tag the people who want to come and watch.
okay. So, as Sam said, I'm Mark Richards. I am the author of the Michael Brady series, starting with Salt in the Wounds. There's the book. And there's now 4 full-length books, plus 2 or 3 novellas. And as of Christmas, I thought I'd set myself the challenge of writing a Christmas ghost story. So that was a good challenge, and I enjoyed the research for that. I'm just going to start off this evening with a serious apology because I've got a cold, a really serious cold. And it's the first cold I've had for about 3 years since before COVID, and when everybody was wearing masks and things like that, and I'd forgotten how bad a cold was. So I've got water. I'm embarrassed to say that I have got a toilet roll handy, lest I need to blow my nose. And I've also been taking those Vocal Zone tablets. If you've ever got to give a speech, Vocal Zone tablets are the things to use. And of course, I've snorted a couple of lines of Sinex. So there we go. Off you go, Sam.
There we go. I have managed to tag several people. I have hopefully given Dawn the link, so
So we're good.
that's live now. And we've got people joining us. Hello, everyone who's joining already. As we were saying very briefly before we went live, and I said I'd just tell you this once we were talking, I'm absolutely loving The Edge of Truth.
Good. You haven't gone past page 90, have you?
No, you told me not to, and I thought
Right.
I'm going to wait and read the rest of it in the right order once it's edited and
Yeah,
ready
yeah,
to go.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
I mean,
I just love picking up one of your books because I always feel like it's going back to something that I can settle into. You are a bit grim at times with certain scenes. However, I can cope with that because everything's so comfortable and familiar, and it's just such a wonderful feeling to settle into one of your books.
I think what I'm enjoying in the Edge of Truth, and then in book 6 and book 7, obviously Brady's daughter is getting older. He's having more meaningful conversations with her. Obviously, his new relationship is developing, and I'll be entirely honest with you, I don't quite know where to take that.
Oh, that's interesting.
50% of the readers say he should stay with her. 50% of the readers say get rid of her. So I don't quite know where
That's
to take.
because they're all thinking about Mike Brady for themselves. They don't want to share him.
I know that somebody did say to me that she went to Whitby for the weekend, and she said, I would have gone out for the evening with Brady. Absolutely, Um, so
I would. I mean, obviously, I've been married for more than 2 decades. I wouldn't date him. However, I think he'd be somebody. It's somebody that you feel safe with. Somebody that you could go for a drink with, or you could go for food with, and you just know that you'd be safe with him. I think that's what you've created. One of these men that we look for. We look for in our real lives people like Mike Brady.
yeah, I like Mike Brady because he's got his problems, and somebody wrote a review on Amazon that said, Brady's not perfect, but he's not got ridiculous demons like some characters have. But he's an ordinary guy doing his
Yeah,
best in difficult circumstances.
yeah.
And I think that's it, and he's full of doubt. And also in this book he's 44. So he's starting to, he's constantly putting off getting reading glasses and things like that, which of course he's going to need, and there's one scene where he goes off to get weighed and comes back and tells his girlfriend how much he weighs, and that he's got to stick at that, because if he starts to put weight on at 44, he's never going to get it off again. So, and he weighs a lot less than I do, sadly. But yeah. I've sort of grown to like him, and I think in the in the that's ridiculous to say I've grown to like him. He's actually, Mike Brady's as much a part of me as my right leg might be, you know. But in the writing, Brady and Ash, Frankie, um, I'm prepared to trust them much more than I was in the first book. By that I mean just trust me to tell me what's going on, you know. And I have faith in the fact that they'll work it out between them, you know. So in terms of, I know there are writers who plot the books assiduously, page by page by page. You know, I probably I've got a few signposts along the way, and I'm prepared to trust Mike Brady to tell me how to get from one signpost to the next. And the characters, you know, very much character driven. And I've got to say that I particularly like the less savoury characters. And I also, my favourite character of the supporting characters, of the one, is Ruby in book 3 in the Echo Bones. But we went to Lisbon last week for a few days away, and I had an idea on the plane, and I started writing another character, and I strongly suspect she's going to rival Ruby in my affections. So we'll see. You know, we'll see. It's one of the research and the sort of letting the characters develop is something that I really, really enjoy. You know, there's parts of the writing process that I'm not so keen on, you know, but yeah, letting the characters develop is something that I really, really like.
I think it comes across in the writing as well that you are trusting the characters to go. You're trusting yourself to let the characters kind of go off on a tangent, and
yeah,
you know, you're quite comfortable. You've really settled into who they are and what their instincts will tell them. And yeah, Brady is pushing things a little bit, but that's who he is. It's exactly who he is, and it always leads into the right place.
I think Brady is pushing the boundaries a little bit, and clearly he's, you know, at the start of book 1 he went to Whitby, and that I think you've got to be realistic, and there must come a point when he starts to think, is Whitby too small for me? You know, is it constraining me? And he's got to have doubts, because damn it, you know, we all have doubts all the time, don't we? If you don't have doubts, whether it's about what you're doing or your kids or you know, your family or you know, I mean, I have considerable doubts, you know, as to what to do with my wife's sister, who's managed to stir the pot in our family of late. You know, the next book, I don't know whether to have her torn limb from limb by ravenous werewolves or just dunked in Whitby Harbour like a witch. You know, I've just no idea. Just check for me that she's not a member of this group and just watching in, you know. But yeah. So, but I do. I'm more than happy now to give the characters a framework, and let them crack on and see what happens, you know. And I do sort of junk quite a lot. And this is the.
Don't think she should stick her under the patio.
Okay, that's the if you can see that, that's the working file for Edge of Truth, because I do like to edit on paper. So that's my working file, and there's probably how many pages are there in there? It's about 180 pages in there of A4. You know, probably 10, 12, 14 of them I'll tear up because they're not right, or they're not good enough, or the story has moved on, and you just accept that. You know, you don't often waste very much. You know, if Brady says something, or Frankie or Ash says something particularly funny, but it doesn't fit the story, well, it'll keep till the next book.
Yeah.
You know, I'm loath to let a good joke escape me. And to be blunt, if my wife says anything funny, really funny, that I think I could give to Frankie as a line, I just scurry upstairs and write it down. and then steal it off her with no compunction at all. So all the really funny lines for Frankie are probably originated from my wife. In fact, there's a character in this book. I don't know if have you met Magic Pockets yet?
I've not met him. I'm aware of him.
Right.
So he hasn't appeared in person before page 90.
Right, but he's been spoken of. Okay, he's a character that I should give all the credit to my wife for, because she came up with the idea for that character. So I'm deeply indebted to her for Magic Pockets. Yeah.
Right. In your email to me earlier this week, you said let's talk about your writing style and how you bounce all over the place.
Oh,
now,
I did.
I've been lucky enough to see some of this, because even though the first 90 pages have had you've clearly edited them, there's obviously still bits to do. There's kind of little notes that you've left for yourself and different things. So it's been really interesting just to kind of live in your head for a few hours and just see how you do things.
Yeah, I write the Brady books in a series of what the old script writers used to call beats. Okay, so I have 40 beats that I want in the book, and I want the sort of first what the old script writers used to call the inciting incident. I want that round about 0.5. Then I want major turning points at 10, 20, 30. Okay. And then I want the climax at about 38, so that 39 and 40 are the sort of reflections afterwards. But I don't write in a linear fashion. So
I can see that.
I don't start at page 1 and work my way through the book, because I just haven't got that sort of mind. I suspect that I'd get a little bored if I did that. And also, I'm like a schoolboy with, how the homework that you didn't want to do, your science homework or something like that, you always put it off until Sunday night, 8:30 on Sunday night, or 6:30 on Monday morning, something like that. I'm the same with, some scenes come very easily to you, and some scenes come are much harder to write.
Yeah.
So if I have a good idea for a scene at, say, I don't know, 0.26 or something like that, I will write it, because it sort of informs what's going to come before it. The big drawback with it is that you have to then go back through the book and make sure everything is consistent. I mean, I'm better at that than I was. First book, I brought somebody back from the dead, for goodness sakes, changed somebody's text. All these peripheral things, that get in the way. But you've got to make sure that you sort of layer all the clues in along the way. So I do have a document. I hope to God I didn't send it to you. I have got a document that's called Clues.
No, you haven't sent me that, and I wouldn't have looked. If you'd have sent it me, I would not have looked. Maybe after I'd read the book, but only with your permission.
Right.
I'm a proper goody two shoes. If somebody sends me something by accident, I wouldn't look at it.
After you've read the book, I'll send you the Clues document.
Ooh.
Okay. Because it's just, I mean, very often it's just chance remarks and things like that, But so I freely admit that I'm not a terribly disciplined writer, and
seems to work for you though.
But yeah, I think you've just got to go with whatever works for you, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm impatient to get on with a book. Yeah, I never ever spend the right amount of time plotting and sketching out the story and things like that. I really ought to go away to a small rock in the middle of the sea with just a notebook and spend a week plotting it out and getting it. But I'm impatient to meet the characters. To meet the new characters. and to see what Frankie's been up to, and how's Frankie's relationship going to pan out with this new guy. Again, I've got an idea, but I'm not entirely sure as to what's what.
I
Again,
think that keeps it interesting for you as well, though, surely.
Absolutely. The one thing that I am sort of adamant about is that the characters will continue to evolve and develop, because I think if characters don't develop, then you get to a stage where you think, well, what's the point in reading it? Because I know, I mean, who am I to criticise Lee Child and his Jack Reacher books? If I was £1 million behind Lee Child, that'd be absolutely fine, But I got to a stage with Jack Reacher where, I knew he was going to have sex on page 223. I knew he was going to be the same Jack Reacher at the end of the book as he was at the beginning. And you thought, well, whereas you take a character like Kurt Wallander, who went through all sorts of personal problems and ultimately ended up with dementia, didn't he? Now, I've no plans to give Brady that in any way, shape, or form. But he's a man in his 40s, and when men get into their 40s, bits start dropping off, and bits stop functioning quite as well as they once did. And he's no exception.
I'm really still enjoying the relationship with him and Ash. I think the way that's developing, I think you've given yourself some challenges, but you're meeting them really just beautifully.
Ash, the relationship with Ash, as you know, is based on my relationship with my own daughter. And for anybody sort of new to the books, my daughter is, how old is she now? 26. She's getting married next year. God, wedding dresses cost a lot of money. Goodness me! I had to be.
People buy some books.
I had to be sedated. If somebody, it's
a Yorkshireman in a wedding dress shop.
They're going for Bev, my wife, and Eleanor, a couple of the bridesmaids, are going wedding dress shopping a week on Saturday. I'm staying at home to watch football. But I had to be sedated. There we go. So if anybody watching this would like to buy 10,000 books, I would appreciate it quite enormously. What was I saying? Ash. Yeah, so Eleanor and I are really good pals now. But when she was 14, 15, she went, as many teenage girls do, she went through some problem years, and she and I didn't have the best of relationships. And I will freely tell you that I used to lie awake in bed at night thinking, if anything happens to my wife, how the hell will I cope, and how will I bring her up on my own? And that was essentially the problem that I gave Brady to sort out.
I think you're braver than me. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could put my own issues in a book. I think I'd end up, I don't know that it'd be cathartic for me. I think I'd just make myself worse.
Right. I mean, we're getting into quite deep water now. Some of Brady's slight insecurities are my insecurities. I mean, there's very simple things about Brady that are me. When he describes his perfect bacon sandwich, that's me talking. Brady's pretty much inability to cook anything other than spaghetti bolognese. I'm probably a better cook than Brady. But when I was in my 30s, then I probably was about as good as Brady. Just going back to Ash, very clearly, with she's a teenage girl with her mother having died. She and Mike Brady are going to have some difficult conversations. And they've got this agreement that they will always be totally honest with each other. And Brady knows that she's going to ask him some very, very difficult questions. And he's going to have to answer them. And I've actually been writing a scene this afternoon, which, without giving too much away, you know, Ash is obviously at the stage where she has her first where she's going to have her first boyfriend. You know, Brady's going to worry about that. You know, he's going to. Then you have the possibility. I mean, my daughter's first boyfriend. You know, I would cheerfully have sold him to white slavers. You know, the Johnny, the guy she's going to marry, you know, is absolutely fine. You know, he's a lovely lad, and he's an Everton supporter, so he understands the meaning of pain. Yeah, he's lovely. But the first one, my goodness me, you know,
John and your sister-in-law under the patio.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know where he is now. I don't know. I think he's decamped to Sheffield or somewhere like that, you know. But
and good riddance.
There you go. You know, but I mean, you go through that, you know, and you know, both the boys have got partners now who are they seem pretty settled with, you know. So it happens, you know. They go through the teenage years and they come out the other end, you know, and we'll see, you know. Not that I'm going to see my boys for a while, because, as you know, they're both in Australia now. So there. I'm gonna resist that temptation. I'm not going to send Brady to do a case in Tasmania or anything like that, because I think when you do that, you know, readers. I've had 2 or 3 readers say, please don't do that. You know, don't send him to a different location. You know. So I won't do that, you know.
That's not something that bothers me. If a detective goes on holiday and stumbles upon a case, then yeah, there's obviously kind of things that can go wrong with that, and they're not really in the jurisdiction and all of that, but it doesn't bother me at all. I can suspend belief on that.
Right. I did think when we were in Lisbon, I did think it would be quite nice to have a series about a you know, retired cop living out there, something like that. You know, but you know, I mean, he'd just eat pasty Donata all day, you know. So basically, that wouldn't be too much of a story, you know, if it was anything like me. So.
Now, you have made notes for me about Lisbon. Somebody commented, and I'm wondering who it was. Hello, 2 of my favourite people. I'm masked up, Mark. So you told people this week, put the mask on so they don't get you cold.
Yeah, yes.
And I can't see who it is. It's just come up as Facebook user, but I can't see who it was in the comments. So hello, whoever we are, 2 of the favourite people of. Oh, lovely. And I've seen Steve say hello as well.
Okay, well, say hello back, because I can't see any comments.
Oh, okay. Right, so Lisbon. Feel free to ask me how I nearly got arrested by the Lisbon police.
I did. I'm gonna.
I can't take you anywhere. Nev must do or not.
I'm gonna do 2 comments here. One is that you should never, ever, ever go on holiday with a writer, and the reason is that writers, when they're on holiday, switch off in the main, but don't totally switch off, and they're actually a bloody embarrassment to be with. So we got off the plane, and you know, sometimes you get off the plane and you get in that little bus to go to the terminal. So we get in the bus to go to the terminal, and there's the guy standing next to me has got a bag with him, which is about half briefcase size. And it's got written in great big letters, only for use in a medical emergency. And I couldn't resist staring at this bag, and and my wife can see exactly what I'm thinking. I want to say, excuse me, mate, what's in the bag? What, you know, what? Because you think, oh, can I use that? You know. So there's the medical emergency bag. We went somewhere on the train, and there was a mother with her son, and her husband was sitting right at the other end of the carriage, because the son kept commuting between the two, and it was clearly mother and father, but they weren't sitting together. And again, I couldn't. My wife said something to me, and I totally ignored her because I was just focused so much on the relationship between this mother and father and why they weren't sitting together. But then anyway, we got off the train. We're walking along the dockside in a place called Cascais, which is really nice, and if somebody would like to buy 2 million books, I could probably afford an apartment there. Anyway, we're walking along the dockside, and there's the marina and this sort of thing. And I'm talking to my wife, and I'm suddenly very conscious that she's not answering me. And the reason is that she's stopped walking and she's 30 yards back. And I've carried on walking, explaining something exciting like a plot to her. And I've walked right through some police incident tape, and the police divers in the harbour at the back of a yacht, the divers going down clearly to recover something. And old Muggins here is stood right in the middle of the bloody investigation because they've left a gap in the incident tape, and I haven't noticed at all. And of course, I received a choice volley of Portuguese from a burly-looking detective, and retreated fairly quickly. But then I went to the other side of the harbour and took photographs. So that's the problem. You get so involved in thinking, well, this could happen and that could happen, and holidays are a good time for thinking about plots because your mind is slightly detached, but my wife just left me to it. She just stopped, saw the incident tape, left me to either walk into the marina and crash over the side into the sea or to get arrested. I thought that was maybe a cunning plan to get rid of me. And have a bit more room on the flight coming back, Where's your dad? Well, he's in custody in Portugal, actually, So.
There's some sort of joking going on about something in the chat, and I'm having a look. Mills said, evening, joining at the I knew he was going to have sex point. Might have been a first even in here. And then somebody said, lol, to Mills, and she said, shall we wait for Sam to read it and try not to laugh? I'm not going to try not to laugh. Not even one bit. How are you finding almost writing sex scenes? You're not really writing them.
No, I'm not. No.
You're hinting at things that happen and then you're closing the door.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Was a conscious decision you didn't really want to get?
Sure.
See, Mills is going to try and embarrass us, but no, not embarrassed. People have sex.
No, for sure. I mean,
that's not an instruction, by the way.
No.
You don't all have to go and do that.
The first sex scene that I wrote was in the second book, and it was when Brady and Frankie nearly had a moment, and Frankie undid the couple of buttons and let her blouse fall to the floor. At which point Ash put her key in the door and came home unexpectedly, as all too frequently happens, So I thought that was as far as I would take it. Sex scenes in book 5. I don't shy away from. I don't shy away from Brady being in bed with Siobhan or anything like that. Again, I take it so far, but I don't want to take it. I don't want to take it any further. I don't really want to have a graphic sex scene because I don't think that's appropriate, and I don't need it. I don't think
it definitely doesn't need it. Just the hint of it is, it's perfectly fine.
And you know as well as I do that the hint of something is actually it's actually is at least as erotic as going all the way. And I think that's fine. I think in terms of writing sex scenes, I don't think they're a particularly difficult thing to write. But you've got to get the right book, haven't you? And you've got to, if you start off that way. I mean, I don't think now it would be appropriate in a Brady book to introduce a very explicit sex scene, because
it wouldn't suit what's gone before now, would it?
No, because there haven't been sex scenes in book 2, 3, and 4. There certainly isn't. I mean, they're in bed together in book 5, but he gets interrupted. Poor old bloody Brady. He's had his sex life interrupted by phone calls more times than any man has any right to. So there certainly isn't one in book 5. Would there be one in book 6? No, there wouldn't. No, I'd be perfectly. But equally, Brady was 42, 43. It was clearly not logical, not consistent with life for him to remain celibate.
No.
Indefinitely. So yeah, I quite enjoy writing those scenes. But I don't think I need to take them any. I don't think I need to take them any further than they go at the moment.
Fair enough. Laura said you could get a nomination for the Bad Sex Awards. What is that? Do we want to know? I mean, I have read some brilliant scenes in books, and I've read some awful scenes in books.
Yeah.
And it just kills the whole book if something's really bad.
Yeah, I mean, without this pleasant chat we're having at 20 to 8 in the evening, I don't want to despoil it with, but if you suddenly start writing in that way, and try and get a Bad Sex Award nomination, you could probably do it. But
Mills has rejoined just in time for another sex mention. We were saying, Mills, that you're trying to embarrass us. I don't embarrass that easily. Why did I just say that? Why? Why did I just say I don't embarrass that easily? I really do. I blush really easily. Somebody said, "Oh God, please don't. I can't read sex scenes by authors I know well." Right. I do sometimes think that I feel a bit awkward reading things by people that I know well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's my problem, not anybody else's.
Yeah.
We'll move on from the sex scenes, don't worry. Yeah. Kaz said...
Besides, it's Whitby. It's bloody freezing for 10 months. It's far too cold.
Need that triple glazing.
Yeah. We'll set a book in the south of France, they have a sex scene on every page, where it's nice and warm, but with the wind coming off the sea.
Kaz said... have you been up to more acting out scenes, Mark? Your previous ones on Whitby Pier are legendary. Now, you get mentioned a lot in mine and Kaz's interviews because of that. When we ask people, have they ever acted out a scene, we always use you as an example.
Right.
So, any more acting stuff out, considering what we've just been talking about?
I've been... This book has demanded quite a lot of walking across the moors,
Nice.
And the one before, the Echo of Bones, where Lilla Cross, I set off to walk to Lilla Cross, park my car, set off to walk to Lilla Cross, thinking it's about 2 miles across the moors. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, so it's 4 miles there and back. All right, so I can do that, Turned out to be 4 miles there and 4 miles back across the North York Moors, but I love that research, and I do. Something happens at the end of book 6 where I draw the research line. Okay, but I am. I've not shared this with my wife yet. That I am. I am going to go on the moors in the middle of the night at one point, and see how cold it is, and see just how exposed it is and things like that. I mean, it's coming up to spring now, so I might save that. I might save that for the autumn.
I'm
But
all for research, but surely you could just write it was really cold and save yourself some trauma.
all right, I'll tell you a thing that last time I went swimming in the North Sea, yeah, it was bloody freezing. It really was cold, really cold, and I was in sort of shock for 2 or 3 days where I still had pains and aches in my muscles, And I think if you don't do the research properly, and it's silly because it's only one line in a book, but that's what gives it the authenticity,
Yeah, it must influence quite a lot, even if it's only written as one line.
Yeah, and I think going back to Salt in the Wounds, the first book, that I wanted that scene in a women's prison. And I found, and UKCBC is really good for that. That somebody in UKCBC knows somebody who, so for, I'm getting ahead of myself now. So for book 7, there's some specialised research that I want there, and somebody in UKCBC will know the person that I want, and I really, really enjoy that. And there's a line in. There's a line in Salt in the Wounds where Brady describes the smell in the women's prison, which is a mixture of chips and cheap perfume. Because the prison officer that I spoke to said that the meeting room is always next to the canteen, and it's always chips. And when excuse me, when the husbands or boyfriends are turning up, the women prisoners have put cheap perfume on, and she said the smell is awful. She said it's this mixture of cheap perfume and chips. And when you get a line like that, I think that's really good,
Yeah, definitely. Both having a little sip and sorting our throats out. Laura said, I did -20 one Christmas about 10 plus years ago back home in Northern Ireland. It was an experience. I dread to think. I mean, I handle the cold quite well. I generally like it, but I can't imagine. I think I'd be too scared to be upon the moors on my own at midnight.
Well, that's the other thing, I think, that
You need all the senses.
you need all your senses, and I think you've got to experience it. I do. I'm not a particularly physically brave person at all, not in any way, shape, or form. But I do like to do the research, and it's I've said this previously, but when I started writing the books, and go back 3 years, and we went to Lisbon, and we were there just before the pandemic, and I'd saying to Bev that I think I ought to try writing a novel, and with absolutely no belief that I could do it. Absolutely no belief that I could do it. So it was nice to go back 3 years later, with 4 novels and a 5th one on the way, and the novellas and everything else. It's really nice. And
How far you've come.
And I think for anybody watching this who thinks I'd like to write a book, that do it, because looking back on it is a brilliant thing. But the 2 things that I never, ever, ever anticipated when I wrote the books were how much I would enjoy the research, which I absolutely love, and I like the fact that I learn about odd esoteric subjects, and again, there might only be one line in the book, and I thought the research would be just, how long does it take a body to dissolve in a bath of acid and that sort of thing. The answers are just over a weekend, so if you've got nothing planned, that'll occupy the weekend. That sort of thing. But you research all sorts of things, and I can't tell you what I'm researching for book 7 because it'll tell you what the plot is and things. But so that the research was something that I never ever anticipated, and also the contact with readers through groups like this. I really really like it. If I've got my own reader group on Facebook and things like that, and if anybody ever sends me a comment, I always try and reply to it and things, because that sort of direct contact. And not, I mean, I know it's called UK CBC, but the fact that there are members from America, Australia, Canada, I think is absolutely brilliant. And Maureen Webb in Brisbane, I feel like Maureen is an old friend. Marcia Cummins in Minnesota, where it must be about minus 20 degrees at the moment. Steve Munoz in Los Angeles, where I think they've had snow for the first time
wow.
San Francisco had snow. And I really, really, really like that. I freely admit that I've got no idea what time zone I'm in anymore. But
No.
yeah, I really like that. And I think the fact that UK CBC has got members all around the world is a real, real plus. That said, I still haven't sold a book in Japan, and that's one of my big ambitions, is to sell a book in Japan. But we're working on it.
Mo has said, crossed moors beside flying dales today in the mist. Keep thinking, must walk to the cross you mention on Like Wake Walk. Were the walks as hard as you have written? Guess they might have been worse. I mean, you've done a lot of walking.
Yeah.
So let's sell your other books while we're at it.
Okay, so the first book I ever wrote was I had a midlife crisis. I didn't have much of a midlife crisis, but I just wanted to do something physical challenge before I got too old for a physical challenge. And I used to walk my dog on the cliff tops here in Scarborough, and it's actually the Cleveland Way. And so I asked Alex, my youngest son, if he wanted to come for a walk with me, and we went on the Pennine Way for 5 days. So there's two books about the Pennine Way, because we did 5 days, and then a couple of years later we did 6 days, and then the year after that we walked around County Kerry in Southwest Ireland, which was just beautiful, and I miss Southwest Ireland to this day. So walking, to answer that specific question, walking across the moors to the Lilla Cross is not that difficult. It's if you park on the Scarborough Whitby Road, it's, as I say, it's about 3 3/4, 4 miles to walk there. If you park on the Whitby to Pickering Road and go up that way, it's a couple of miles. I mean, Brady's got another dilemma in this book, because he finds a piece of the moors that's really, really quiet and deserted, and he debates whether to tell Siobhan about it, but he decides to be selfish and keep it for himself as a sort of place for a bit of spiritual renewal, and that's a real place that exists. So I've been really quite flattered and humbled in many respects by the number of people that have said, I've read the books and I've been to Whitby and I've walked round the bits that Brady walked round, and
it's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, I'm going to write a Michael. I've maybe 12,000 word book, but I got slightly blown off course by family events. I shall write Michael Brady's Guide to Whitby, so that you can actually follow what he did in the books. Would you and anybody watching just excuse me for 10 seconds while I blow my nose?
Absolutely. Would you like me to mute you for a moment?
No.
I was going to look for. I've got one of the books that you signed and sent me, but I am slowly working through a tidy up of my office. For anyone who's actually seen my desk, it's even worse at the moment, because I'm just My husband says I build like a little nest around myself when I'm stressed,
Right.
and I must have done it without noticing. Needs a good tidy.
I think you can't help doing that, and you. You know, my office is in what used to be my daughter's bedroom, and it's I could do with a bit more space, you know, but I'm pretty messy, and if you give me more space, I'll just put paper all over it, you know, as opposed to actually being
Are
efficient.
you like me? If there's a flat surface, there's
Yeah,
books or papers and
let's
stuff. Then.
let's cover it in paper. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but no, that the fact that people go to Whitby is I'm really touched by that. I really am, you know. And I actually, you know, and I've met a couple of readers and things. A couple of readers were in Whitby, and in fact, Dawn, who asked the link right at the start of this, you know, they were in Whitby having a weekend away. Came down to Scarborough and we met up and had a chat about the books and had a bacon sandwich and you know, and that was really nice thing to do, you know, and looking forward to June. That'll be a great thing to do, you know.
Yeah, it really will. How much do you want to tell us about this book? I don't. I've obviously read and really loved, and it is absolutely shaping up to be my favourite one so far. And I am going to wait until you finish it and release it at the end of this month
Right.
before I go back. I'll go right back to the beginning, and on my Kindle Unlimited subscription. So I don't want to say too much because things might change. I don't know how far you're committed to the story where you're up to. So what do you want to say about the book?
Okay. So in The Edge of Truth, it starts off with it's quite a nice story. It's I wrote the first scene of this book maybe 5-6 years ago, and to see if I could write in that sort of style, because you know, obviously at that time I didn't do anything like that. So I've always kept it. I've always kept it, and I always wanted to use it in a book. So it starts off with Diane MacDonald being found on the rocks at Runswick Bay. Brady's convinced she's been murdered. There's absolutely no evidence to support that. And for the first, you know, up to halfway through the book, poor old Brady, doesn't really have a crime to investigate, which is starting to cause him doubts. It's starting to cause him to have arguments with Frankie. You know, he's determined to prove that she was murdered, and by about where you're up to, he finally has a crime to investigate. But I brought a few new characters into this. Graham MacDonald, whose wife dies, was in the first book, a sort of ghost from Brady's past. But I've brought a homeless ex-serviceman into it, Jerry Donahue. You know, and I'm not seeking to make a political point here, but at all, because I don't make any political points in the books, because I think when writers do that, I think you offend some of your readers, you know. But we do draw the contrast between Jerry Donahue, who's served in Northern Ireland and is now homeless, and Graham MacDonald, the MP, who's got a third home that he lives in for 4 weeks of the year, you know. So there's Jerry, there's Magic Pockets, who again, who both of whom may well feature in future books, you know, as Ruby does, just as someone who almost becomes a friend of Brady's, because Whitby is a small town. There's no question about that. You know, as Brady says in the book, you know, Whitby you were at school with half the town and you related to the other half of the town. So those new characters come into it. It's very, very much character driven. Brady continues with his relationship with Siobhan, but they have an argument halfway through the book. Ash asks him some difficult questions. Brady's got to resolve it. Brady, Brady, in some ways as well, because of the difficult questions that Ash asks Mike Brady in this one, in book 5, I'm setting up book 6 as well. Because obviously his wife has died before the first book starts. I don't think that we can leave the question of who killed his wife indefinitely.
No, of course not.
Otherwise, readers will lose patience with it, and it is only realistic that Ash would say to her dad, why did my mum die, and who's responsible, And Brady has got to answer those questions at some stage. And
that must be quite a worrying thing as well for you, because I know you quite well now. You want to get that absolutely right.
I do want.
I know you're going to be. This is going to be 3 a.m. thoughts.
I do want to get that absolutely right, and the conversations with Ash, I want to get those absolutely right.
Yeah.
And yeah. And I will get them absolutely right as well. I think what worries me more is once he's laid Grace to rest properly, what does he do after that? But we'll see. We'll get there. I mean, you just, something's mulling around in your mind, and then you're having a shower or something like that, and then suddenly the solution presents itself, and but it's only one little thing, and then you go on to the next bit, the next bit, the next bit. But I do, you're absolutely right, Sam, that I do want it all to layer together properly, and I will go back and rewrite or just put an extra sentence in that's got a clue in it or something, because it's very much layering is the best way to describe it. I think that you just gradually build it up, because lots of the book is what's happening in Brady's mind.
Yeah, and they're so beautifully written. Every time I pick one up, I know I'm in good hands. Anyone who's read any of your books would say the same thing.
Yeah,
you know what a big fan I am. So reading this, how many people have read what I've read?
What you've read? A few people in my reader group are probably up to there, but not many. So
I've been very careful about what I could say, because especially seeing as I don't know how it ends yet, and I am going to wait and read it once you've finished. I think I'm going to wait. I don't know. Maybe I'll just have to read it as it is now and then read it again. I don't know that I can wait. But I think it's... Sorry, go on.
Don't go past page 90 of what you've got, because after that, scenes are in the wrong order and all sorts of things, If you saw my file I can't probably turn to the right page now, but if you saw this file, there is a page shortly after you stop reading that has got arrows, lines, everything all over it,
Right, I'll behave. I'll stop.
Yeah.
We've done an hour already. That hour is just absolutely flown.
Every time we talk, we say, don't we, that the hour goes so quickly,
It really does.
And
you're coming back in September, I believe, for the next one as well. We've already got you booked in.
Late August, September, aren't I? Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So we'll announce that nearer the time.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll, I'll obviously, announce the book as and when it's ready. There'll be a few early mornings between now and then, but we'll get it right in the end.
I don't doubt it. Don't doubt it for a second.
So, Yeah. We'll see what happens and see how many difficult questions Ash asks him. You know.
Donna wants us to just keep chatting. Sorry, Donna, we're going to give Mark's voice a rest. Otherwise, I could easily do another couple of hours.
Yeah.
But not tonight.
I'm going to
Thank
take.
you so much. Thank you. Hello, Steve. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined in and asked questions, said hello. And thank you, Donna, for nothing too tricky. And thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for letting me have a look at the book. I promise I will not read further until you tell me I can.
Brilliant.
But thank you so much, and I hope you feel better soon.
Yeah, will do. You take care, and I'll talk to you soon.